Before we delve into my ideas about the design motifs over the years, we must first look back to see how the internet
Destination. Why not?
Like that or what?
1991. This is the first website being ever made in November of 1992. As you can see, there is the use of very basic HTML here, as HTML and then the World Wide Web was in its infancy. The use of hypertexts and the use of a grey background. There were colors and but there were a limited range of colors, and it wasn't really web design, more as information layouts and a way to really interconnect things. The only way that you could make a website was through HTML, and none of the code bases, other programming languages that you have now could be able to do it as well. Or they may have been able to, but we just didn't know at the time. So we jumped to 1993. AliWeb was the first search engine. There was color, and there was the use of block color, and perhaps because of an inability for the early versions of the web to display gradients or more intricate design techniques. As you can see here, this is how the first web search engine, Ali, then Lynx, looked, and it was very yellowish, very bright, very child-friendly, very user-friendly, and very eye-catching. And I think that this will be a design technique that was kind of implemented later on in the in like 2010, 2011, and you really saw the use of block colors, but in shades instead of these brighter colors. And then now you see it's making more of a comeback in the form of pastel colors. And there's always been this fight between minimalistic color, like you saw in 1991, even though in 1991 it wasn't really an intentional design decision, more as the limitations of the World Wide Web at the time and what people thought they could do with the World Wide Web. And then here you really do see the use of color and the use of color to really draw your attention to different things. And there is no real color psychology or color will here. Everything is practical. Everything works very well. You see, you have all of your different types, and then you have all your categories, and then on the right with the white you have the intercategories of those and the different links of those. It was just basically a complication of links, but because of its color scheme it was incredibly simple. And we're still on 1993, and this was the first use of a landing page, and it was used by MTV. And as you can see, this is really a design that we would still use now in web development, and is something that would definitely be used. The only thing that really ages it is perhaps despite click here to go to MTV Online. For this thing, it would just be in the picture, and that would be used by, I'll be done using JavaScript. What's even more interesting about this picture is the use of the stripes really is coming back now, and the use of those color stripes, that pastel color. And I know they were using it in the context of an American flag, but it's nonetheless still a design motif that's heavily used now. And in terms of this, I think this being the first landing page really pushed much more websites to start using landing pages, which is an incredibly useful thing in most cases. So we jump to 1994, and the first internet banners have come, and advertisers have seen how powerful the internet can be as an advertising tool. And design hasn't really rearranged itself around advertising yet and trying to suck you in SEO optimization, because as you can see, things like Ali Links don't really care about SEO optimization like newer browsers would do now. So in 1994, the first internet banners were made, and there was ad blockers everywhere, and then people decided to make ad blockers. Obviously, if you find a way to sell to people, people always try to find a way to evade it. And then JavaScript was also introduced in 1994, and this was when animations and pop-ups were added. Pop-ups was also used for ads.
Ooh, I love weird tricks.
Sassy housewives want to meet you.
They do?
Congratulations, you're a winner!
Really?
These 10 child stars went to prison.
So we jump on to 1996. 1996 is such an interesting year for design because it seems like it was the first reversion back to the minimalistic design of 1991. And it's the first time that everything is kind of becoming more simpler. I don't know why all the content, especially with these older websites, was always segregated down in the middle. All the content was always in the middle. Maybe perhaps it's because they use Dreamweaver. I know that when you're using Dreamweaver, that is really the default template that comes. And obviously there's the use of the banner here and the banner design here, and there's a lot more animations and there's a lot more pictures and stuff. And it's less cluttered, and the use of pastel really is what 1996 was about. And this has made a comeback as well, the pastel colors, especially that yellow color, which I kind of like. I like it. And this is also the age where Flash animation was employed to change the interactive landscape of the web, and also when Flash games also made their breakthrough. And I think Newgrounds was probably to follow after that as well. 1998. Google it. What is that? You'll know.
Oh, okay.
CSS is born. Speed was an issue, and so style was needed to become more simple. And because loading these pictures for design became tedious, and with the increase on the internet and people wanting things to be more faster and responsive, it made no sense. The amount of bandwidth it takes to load up pictures is crazy, and that's what everyone was doing for design beforehand. If you revert back to the 1968 and 6 and the CNN website, that's a great example of it. And there is a minimalism in the design, especially Google. Google has always been good with minimalism, but the thing that is so indicative of 1998 to 2003, 2004 is that shadow design. I'll say actually all the way up till 2009. That shadow border on the Google text, that 3D non-minimalistic logo, is something that was such a pinnacle corner of design, and for really 1998 all the way up to 2010. And obviously the Google search, I'm feeling lucky, that's never changed, and it's always looked good. It's quite a classic look. But the logo is really what's different about this. Again, the advent of Google and the ads beforehand meant SEO optimization and drawing people to your website was a key. And then, as you can see, after this time, more design is focused around keeping people, attracting people, and optimizing themselves in the best way possible. And here is where the scientific artistic techniques I was talking about before will be used. 2000.
Y2K was that for convenience, all these computer programs, when it came to do dates, you only needed 2 numbers. Why use 4 numbers when you only need 2? And then they recognized, what date is a computer going to think it is when we get to 2000?
One simple date change for man, one major screw-up for computer.
Okay, the online economy came with PayPal taking off, and they needed a good website for that as well. And as you can see, the PayPal website is kind of pretty. They use the borders again, and which is something that I was trying to explain in 1996 with the CNN website. The use of blue and the use of the minimalistic and logo is something that will change even till now. I'm pretty sure the PayPal logo doesn't really change, or the PayPal.com, and this thing's changed. The Favicon logo they have there has changed a lot. But as you can see, everything is a lot more fluid. Everything is a lot less cluttered, and now the links are not just links, but they have pictures that respond to the links, and this is because of the advent of JavaScript. Yeah, and making really websites more interactive and more beautiful. The CSS meant it loaded faster, and the borders is something that I think would be left off, and this was probably one of the last times that the border was used. The thing that was so indicative about the 2000s was the advent of Y2K, and it was also towards the end of the dot-com bubble where things started to burst and design became more refined, because not everyone will be funding every single website that comes out. And so things had to look good, things had to be useful. They could no longer be basic clutter design. And it's kind of beautiful as it's kind of symbiotic of what's happening now with the crypto bubble and everyone trying to make shit coins and whatnot, and the real bubble that we're in right now. If you can't tell, I lost a shit ton of money in the crypto market. I am totally not bitter whatsoever. (2003) Let's blog it. WordPress plugin architecture and the template system was created. WordPress is what would then which would then become what most websites would be made out of, and it was an architecture that a lot of companies would start using to build their websites quite fastly so that they could have an internet presence. I know for sure that the company that I work at has switched from programming everything in HTML and getting actual web designers and programmers to launching everything off of WordPress. And I necessarily don't like WordPress because I think it's very restrictive in what it lets you do, but I cannot lie, it's quite a powerful architecture system. Then WordPress, especially in those days, and I remember having a WordPress blog in the early days, not 2003, but a bit later, well, not a bit later, a lot later, around 2010, 2011, but what was so indicative even then was the use of border design. Now, the border design in 2003 and 2000 is a lot different from the border design in 1996, because it's texturized, it's picturized, and it can be anything that you want it to be. It's no longer a block color that's restrictive. And CNN were quite sneaky in making the background color the same as the border design color, so it looks a lot more fluid. But the fact of the matter is, because the content was still squished in the middle, you could realize what was happening there. Friendster, MySpace, 2004, the social age. Border design is completely gone. Banner design is here to stay. There is a search option in nearly every website. What was very, very interesting about this search option is that it can switch between the web and MySpace, which is something that a lot of because most of the code for search engine for searching on websites was so open source, it was very easy to connect the search engine of a particular website to the internet, which means that you wouldn't really ever have to leave the website if you wanted to Google something. And I'm using Google. It's 1996, man. I told you that Google would be a big thing when we were in the 1996 column. You didn't believe me. Look who's winning now. But yeah, the use of blue is very much a design motif, but everything's a lot more fluid, is a lot more easier, and there is the use of a actual navigation center on the top banner, which makes it a bit more useful. And what is really different about this is that the member login is no longer a separate page, which is something that would happen in the years to come, and such as the sign up page is on the top. But perhaps that was because it is a lot easier to draw people to log in through that way than it is for them to have to click a bit more links. MySpace was really a relic of the time, but if it was a website that came now, it would really stand its ground apart from the borders around the text. I think it would very much with the color scheme it has stand its ground, and Facebook has retained the same color scheme, just a bit more vivid. Again, that's what's happening with the adaptation of most of those websites. They never really change their design, they just slightly modernize it by adding more curves or making it a bit more fluid or using darker, richer colors to show that we're in Web 2.0, baby. But it's weird. Seems like gradients are making a comeback, huh? Okay, I'm sorry. This is a totally weird transition to me talking about the use of gradient in design and the color and from the colors that was symbolic of each era, but bear with me, we need to get down to this. Okay. Well, gradients were heavily used in the mid-90s as it was a relatively new thing that could be done with the increased efficiency and power of computer graphics being given to these studios and media giants at the time. It was big in America, with shows such as Saved by the Bell being the worst offenders.
When I wake up in the morning and the alarm gets out of warning, I don't think I'll ever make it on time. By the time I got my books and I give myself a look, I'm at the corner just in time to see the bus fly by. It's alright, cause I'm saved by the bell.
However, as you know, when America sneezes, the whole world coughs. Well, the Western world, that is. That's for another video. For some reason, it looks like someone at the BBC has had it in for purple gradients, and it just doesn't look good in the way they implemented it. Till now, when these companies have finally learned to use gradients properly by using softer colors and tones and less harsh fades, this is where the color wheel and color psychology plays its part. However, I digress. The decreased use of harsh fades making the gradients more aesthetically pleasing to the eye has been completely beneficial for not only web design, but TV design as well. The reason that these gradients work well now is because of the innovation of the design tools used, and more powerful rendering options of even consumer-grade computers. Furthermore, designers have become more competent at using it due to how long it's existed. It is no longer the next hottest thing, and so designers have become more matured and are using it more sensibly. They become disciplined in gradient use. I know that I can be a very bad offender when it comes to these videos because I love the use of gradients, but even me, I have to really rein it in and use block colors sometimes as well. And this is used in, this is also seen in computer interface. I mean, if we remember Vista, which was a very short-lived operating system, but if we remember Windows Vista and the way that it used to look, it had a lot of use of translucent gradient design, and it was what they saw as the future, this sort of glass design that was implemented back into Windows 7, but was the staple point of Windows Vista. They thought that in the future everything will be glass, and then if we look at the recent iMac.
Y'all don't hear me. 6'6" piston, tiptoe kiss 'em, cat call kittens, whole milk licking, see my vision, rainbow smitten, nobody safe, nobody, you and you and you and you can be my lover, 'cause love looks better.
Now, that is completely the case. We're making a move back into the mid-2000s, which was making it even further move back into the futurism ideals of the 1980s. And the way that they keep on changing is inherently interesting to me. But again, we're going off track here. Let's get back into the gradients. And the reason that these gradients look so much better, and the reason that these glossy designs look so much better, even if you look at Windows 10, Windows 11, which has a more Vista-y design now, and compared to Windows 10's almost DOS-like design with the block colors and minimalism, you can see the use of the glass and the use of glossy design even in the operating systems. This goes for both Windows and Apple, Microsoft and Apple. This works a lot better than it did back then, and it does look modern. Back then it was meant to look futuristic and modern. Now it looks modern and sleek, and the reason is because of these three things. They've learned to use darker colors. The gradients are now accents, and they're more subtly used. They're not in your face, look at my futurism. It serves a purpose, and that is what's respected by not only the user's eye, but the general public's eye. And then there's also an increased use of pink and purple, which were often seen as quite disgusting colors, but have now morphed into something a lot more useful. However, it's not like TV graphics has been left to bite the dust. They've changed from purple gradients in the 1990s to purple solids, and now a mixture of textured colors of their landing pages and TV graphics. This is because of the general design trends of the time, and the main reason I'm making this video. It seems like design trends are always rebounding between each other, and that falls a lot in line with history. Well, hey, They do say revolutions are cyclical.
Oh, neat. Is that neat, or do you like that, or what?
Oh, neat.
Pretty tricky.
Oh, I like that color.
You like that? Okay. Okay, watch this then.
Hey, neat. Nice colors. If you like that, wait till you see the next part.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty. Mom, let's get that.